Hi there. Welcome back to another episode of Life Between Coasts. I'm your host, Leah. We're glad you're here. This week's episode features a good friend of ours, not to the show, but one of my clients. I always bring in clients, but you know what? I have such a diverse client background. It's amazing to be able to tap into all of these minds and their experiences. Saadet's story features love as a main course. It just shows the journey of what love can take you or where love can take you and how it can help you to find your passion and pursue your destiny. So tune in and we hope you enjoy it. Hi there. Thanks again for joining us for another episode of Life Between Coasts. I'm your host, Leah. Today we have Saadet, and she's going to tell us her story and what brought her to the US.
Oh yes. Thank you so much for inviting me. This is a very lovely environment here.
Thank you.
I'm seriously like this is a piece of home, very comfortable and cozy. Thank you first of all.
Thanks.
Um, I am a social work PhD student, and I've been in the U.S. for the last 14 years, I would say. What brought me here? You want to start from there, huh?
Yeah, well, you can start. You can start anywhere, really, wherever you want to be. But what?
Yeah, let's start from there. Like the first time I came to the States and how, why, and all those details because I'm proud of my story basically.
Yes.
And all the elements, all the people in it, it's all life lessons. I'm originally from Turkey and I was getting my undergraduate degree in Turkey and I finished it. And then that exact year, I also started another program that was in another small city. So we had some Fulbright scholars at that university who was also teaching English, and one of them was my teacher. Then she became a friend, and then she became more than a friend. So actually, like I'm not gonna give all the details, but uh, she was an American and she wanted to come back for her PhD program here because she got attended at the University of Michigan. And then it was kind of like a disaster for me because Turkey is um, Middle Eastern country. Majority of the population is Muslim, and being an openly uh, gay woman would be, like a difficulty for me. And I was having really best moment of my lives as a like finally I had a girlfriend that I can really really
Okay.
be happy about.
Right.
So like I said, I'm sharing a little bit here and there, but
That's okay.
Sarah needed to be here in Michigan for her PhD program, but I was just very disappointed and I didn't know what to do. And I'm coming from a uh, first generation, lower than middle class family, and I didn't even have my passport in my life at all. I was 25-year-old and I
Okay.
didn't have all those privileges. So it was kind of like no point to go with this relationship or anything. Thank God to Sarah. She wanted to be um, really the encouraging force in my life, and she showed me that nothing is impossible. Like I can start from little, I can come as a tourist first and then see if it works, and then we'll take it from there. So she helped me a lot to make the procedure. And then I came as a tourist first. I stayed for a couple months and then I went back. And things were going pretty well. So we did it for 3 years, but then finally I was like, it's my time maybe to go back to school because I always wanted to stay in the academia and I wanted to become a professor by myself.
Right.
So I applied my first master's degree in women and gender studies here at Eastern Michigan University, actually. And I got in. So I spent like quite 2, 3 years finishing up that degree, but it was all challenging because I was coming from poverty and I needed to afford my school. I was working at school. I was like trying to pay my tuition. I got a lot of help from my community, both from my Turkish community here, but also from my LGBTQ community.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah and I were not in the picture anymore, but I had a goal in my mind. I'm gonna finish my degree and I'm gonna go toward my PhD.
Mm-hmm.
So that point, like, I decided to look for more in hands-on experience because women and gender studies degree was a little more like theoric in my mind, and I didn't know how to use the degree at that time. I knew right now, but I did not back then. I'm talking about like 10 years ago.
Right.
You know, what seemed really cool to me then was a social work. Social work, I was working at women's nonprofit organization, one of the nonprofit organizations in Ann Arbor, and I see in social workers how they are touching women's lives, LGBTQ people's lives, and I was really truly inspired, and I saw myself in there. So
Okay.
it gave me an idea. Maybe I should pursue a second master's degree.
Mm-hmm.
So I applied again without knowing like how am I gonna pay for the school, how am I gonna, like maintain my basic living expenses, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I just applied
Mm-hmm.
and I got in.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And how did you pay for it?
How did I pay for it? Yes, absolutely. I'm coming there. So I received a financial aid letter because at the same time I'm applying for scholarships at the school to be able to pay. But one day I was with this little kid that I was taking care of, and then I just wanted to speak to someone. I was so sick of, getting emails and communicating through emails. I just wanted to tell my story and how important this is to me. So I went to school of social work at University of Michigan, student services, and I just said I want to talk to someone.
Yes.
So I remember one of the student advisors came out and she saw me with the kid and she asked like if I am his mother, and I said no, I'm actually like his caregiver.
Right.
He's my friend, I'm taking care of him. Anyways, I told what I needed to be able to go to school. Basically it's a big scholarship for an international student if you think about that. It is usually tripled amount of tuition for out state.
Yes.
So it's a lot of money we're talking about it.
University is
And it's
very expensive here.
Absolutely. So we're talking about 6 digits for 2 years of education, and I have never ever owned, none of my family members own altogether that type of money in their life. So what happened, she was really empathetic, and she said, I'm going to talk to my advisor, and then just put up your application again and send us another letter, and another letter. So it was like in a week or so I received a letter like from financial aid department basically saying that I was awarded for dean's scholarship. So it was basically paying all of my tuition.
Oh, how exciting.
Yes.
How fabulous.
It was like I just can't find words for my feeling at that moment. So I was so appreciative and I was so excited, and I always wanted to pay back for that because it felt like, you know what, they get me and I have to give my best to them. So I graduated from my MSW degree in 2021 with a 4.0 GPA, and I got into like straight 9 PhD programs. I got accepted.
Nice.
And I chose one of them to pursue my education right now.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Now, with the PhD, what is your focus? So you went from, you had gender studies initially, and then you went into social work because of being introduced to a community of people that were lifting other people up and helping to raise them and to just engage with that within the community. And then you get your social work degree and you apply, and now 9 universities come calling for you. you choose another one. Now, what is the PhD focused
Yes, I
in?
think mostly it's about my story because like there's a lot of details like how
Yes.
I endured, like yes, school paid for tuition, but I still had to work and I still had to, go through internships and then a lot of, like life challenges. With my PhD, I'm like focusing on two things. One is the LGBTQ and the other is immigrants. Basically, whatever defines me, I'm putting all those. It comes from my heart, it comes from my identity, it comes from my,
And
like challenges.
you're blending two very distinct communities.
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. And then, if I have to say it like in one word, I am um, interested in seeing LGBTQ immigrants and how they navigate their mental health challenges in the US and in US healthcare system basically, and developing coping mechanisms for LGBTQ immigrants and families and their coming out processes basically, because there's a lot of cultural components in it. It's when I say, like in most of LGBTQ immigrants, I do not only include Muslim LGBTQ population. I can say like it's one of the problematic descriptions, uh, but also I do include like any LGBTQ immigrants who are going through, you know, um, mental health challenges in this country.
Mm-hmm.
So I do include asylum seekers. I do include, like documented, undocumented
Mm-hmm.
immigrants as well. So it's like more generalized. But since I am originally from Turkey and it is defined as a Muslim majority country, so it always comes to me, hey, are you working with Muslims? Yes, I do. Because
Mm-hmm.
we're living in Michigan and we do have a big Muslim
We
community.
do.
So I do have close relationships with the community.
Mm-hmm.
And it, to be honest, gives me like more joy and encouragement because I would say it is more close community than many other communities
Mm-hmm.
in a religious aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So since I am someone they know that it's who's coming from the same community actually, so they can open up better.
Well, they're not identifying you just as one thing.
Yes.
They're seeing you as a person, as a human, as their sister,
Mm-hmm.
and they're saying, Sadat, you're not just part of the LGBT community. You're not just part of the Muslim community. You're a strong female that has overcome some challenges and has found her path. And it sounds, to me when go back and forth a little bit, but when we talk about the synchronicity side of
Mm-hmm.
it, certain choices that you've made, even though if they didn't work out, but they got you here. The first step was to come to this country.
Yes.
And that's a big step. Like you said, it took over the period of 3 years, doing a couple different tourist visas. And now, how long into you actually coming here for school did your relationship end with Sarah?
Okay, let's go back to there. So I think like we ended things when I started my first master's degree. So
Okay.
I would say like around 3 years in total,
Mm-hmm.
and they were all back and forth, uh, like long distance
Mm-hmm.
and close, long distance, close. So I
Mm-hmm.
would say about 3 years. But after that, like I said, I've been here for 14 years.
Right.
So it started as a love story,
Yes.
which I really appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it turned out to be a life story,
Mm-hmm.
I would say,
But do
which
you
I am
find,
proud.
right? And do you find now, being that in two separate countries and having your lifestyle, obviously, initially, have you, what are the differences that you see, between, obviously you wouldn't be able to be as open,
Yeah.
most likely, but that's my assumption. I don't know that much about Turkey, so
Yeah,
please
yeah,
tell me.
absolutely. Yeah, Turkey can be considered as, like a secular country, or it used to be more secular country, to my opinion. Things changing for recent administration. especially if they are there over 2 decades. So
Okay.
that's a pattern between most of the European countries. Actually, we see a lot of political leaders staying in their like seats more than decades and decades. So we don't have any like laws or anything against being LGBTQ in Turkey. We do not have any uh, accordance, like against being LGBTQ or penalization or
Okay.
anything like that. It's mostly cultural and it's not socially acceptable.
Okay.
And with the current government being more, like on the conservative side of the uh, political, things, so it's becoming more and more stressing and triggering for people like me in Turkey.
Okay.
So I would say it used to feel like a little bit more uh, less triggering here for me, at least
Right.
as a lesbian woman. And this would be different for different levels of anxiety for different parts of the spectrum. Like a transgender man would hit differently. It would hit, like gay men differently. Um, but I would say here, I used to feel a little bit more like myself. At least I didn't feel like I need to hide my identity. I need to pretend. So I was like more brave and aware of my identity, and maybe I didn't care about what they are gonna think or say about my identity much here than there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now is your family still in Turkey?
Yes, they are. Like all of my family is still in Turkey.
Do you see them? Do you get to go
I
back?
try to go once in a year. I usually visit once in a year if I can. I do have close ties with my family.
Good.
I do talk to my sister almost every day. Yeah, I definitely try to go more often. But since school year is like quite
Busy.
busy, and I do have to study. PhD is taking a lot longer than I do think.
That's all right. It just it takes time. It takes time.
It does.
It does. But it's thrilling and fulfilling at the same, just especially as you cross certain bridges.
Absolutely. Like I have to confess that I underestimated how difficult it was.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, yeah.
I make the joke. I make the joke about taking the 10-year plan for school for my bachelor's. Well, I
Yeah.
started pre-med and stopped and then went back for business. And so one of the jokes that I make is, once I hit chemistry or something, I was like, oh yeah, can't do it, if it wasn't for the science thing. But of course, that's what my mister, he usually says, I would have been a doctor if it wasn't for the science thing. And he definitely is a terrible scientist, let's just say. He cannot, not even close to being a mechanic.
Oh God.
He has no mechanical ability. But going back, but the intellectual side is brilliant. But just how you're bringing everything together,
Yeah.
and you're finding, I think you're finding your purpose because you're living through the challenges of life there, but then finding, and like I said, just coming back, finding yourself in Ann Arbor of all places across the world. Obviously, there are some great universities in this area, and they have a strong educational ties to multicultural
Absolutely.
influences, which is a brilliant thing as well. But with you, I think if we can kind of focus now a little bit more about just outside of your PhD.
Yeah.
What do you do? So you've been here outside of the initial relationship, 11 years. Have you found love again, or
Many times.
many times? Okay.
Many times,
Okay.
multiple times, all the time.
Okay.
Yeah. I think love also another reason that keeps us going basically. And like I'm very open
Mm-hmm.
about my emotions, my feelings, and the feeling of belonging.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to someone, but I also, like evaluate my needs really well. Like I'm very tuned up with my feelings,
Right.
with my needs, and then I'm realistic. So sometimes I do also believe that one person, one single love, maybe cannot be the everything that I need. So
Right.
like I might go toward, like more than one partner at a time.
Okay.
So and this would just like
So a
in
little
all
bit
the
more of a polyamorous
absolutely
type relationship.
I am identified as polyamorous as
Okay.
well. So at the moment I'm adventure.
Now, if
Yeah,
you could
go
explain to
ahead.
our listeners exactly what I'm aware of what it is. I've
uh
just because I'm like
mhm.
I'm a student of life. So if I hear a term of something, I will look it up and I'll find myself diving into information. So I'm aware of it, but it acts as if, and I say this to anybody that I'm sitting with, tell me as if I know nothing. But if you could explain to the listeners
Okay.
exactly what polyamorous is.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, like poly, like literally means like many lovers.
Yes.
So, it's ethical non-monogamy. It is about honesty, communication, and mutual respect, basically. So, a lot of people would use this, like cover up their, like cheating patterns sometimes. But
Right.
for me, polyamory is definitely like being open to having more than one romantic or sexual relationships at the same time, and not all the relationships you're having supposed to be romantic or sexual or all of it together. You might have,
That's the
like,
that's the
yeah,
curiosity
yeah,
side of it. I think that brings into question because it's like, how does it work? Doesn't somebody's feelings get hurt at any point, or
absolutely,
because there's emotion?
absolutely,
I mean, I think sometimes if you just look at it across the board of just like
mm-hmm,
sex, sex is one thing, and it can be just sex in a lot
mm-hmm.
of ways, but some as soon as emotion gets into it, does it
Yes,
that's
yes,
from the social work perspective, so from your
yes,
research in that and then experiencing it in life, tell me
yeah.
how it works.
So basically, why people would choose polyamory, like if you think that you're gonna get hurt, or if you think that the other relationship dynamics is less hurtful or more hurtful, like in general, why do we choose polyamory? So like the belief that love isn't a limited resource. This is the first thing at all. And it's also allowing yourself loving more than one person gives
Mm-hmm.
you another perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I believe this is important. Yes, navigating that is going to require you to work on a lot of your schedule, your time management skills, like
Yes.
it
So is it different? So each relationship is different then.
is
So some of it
different.
is just might be just companionship, perhaps,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
non-sexual. Some of it may be the full
You
package.
can self-define.
Yeah.
You can
So it just
self-define your
each person is
relationship.
identified as something, maybe what all the pieces of the puzzle that you need to complete the
Absolutely.
have the perfect person, but in multiple.
To me, it's basically what I need, what are my needs at this
Mm-hmm.
moment, and if these people are able to, like comply with it, if they are
Right.
able to, like, and it's vice versa. Like,
Right.
am I good for them as well? Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
not always like, yes, it's me, me, me time. No, of course not. I am also very intentional about my uh, caregiving,
Mm-hmm.
and then caring about my partners.
Mm-hmm.
So this is all about wanting different emotional and romantic needs met in different ways,
Right.
I would say. Like, and I do see it as an orientation.
Mm-hmm.
For some, being poly is part of their like core identity,
Mm-hmm.
not a lifestyle choice. But for me, it's definitely an orientation.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's fabulous. I honestly, because it, I've not been able to actually ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, certain, I think that each lifestyle or orientation is very specific to an individual, and what they're
Absolutely.
comfortable with.
Very personal, very
Right.
individual, and highly
And to
communicative.
blanket, to just
Yes.
put a general definition on something and say, oh, this is what it is, because I think that there might be that expectation, and I'm going to say this, and it might come across a little raw,
Mm-hmm.
as I say
Mm-hmm.
this, but I just want you to just kind of prepare you there for you. But, if you talk to somebody from a different generation, let's say an
Mm-hmm.
older generation
Mm-hmm.
that might not understand
Yes.
what it is, their quick reaction would be, well, isn't that just a cover up for being
Mm-hmm.
a
Mm-hmm.
gigolo or a
Absolutely.
slut or a whore or whatever you want to call them? But I'm just saying, and I throw out gigolo first because that was the male term. Because I think men are more frisca,
There are still patterns. There
I mean,
are
there
still
are women out there
patterns.
too, but
Yes.
I don't know. I that was something I'm very selective
Yeah.
on, anyways. But at any rate, it's very interesting just understanding that's an additional layer to you that you can't just look at somebody and see.
Yeah.
This is where you have to get to know somebody and have these conversations and connections.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think like for all those generations or the people, even like newer generations, or they didn't know that like the concept of polyamory or the orientation of polyamory exists. Like I would like to introduce them with one terminology actually. So it is compersion.
Mm-hmm.
Compersion is something, a term that we use a lot in our communities. It refers to the feeling of joy
Mm-hmm.
and emotional uplift that comes from seeing your partner happy with someone else,
Mm-hmm.
which is sounds impossible, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like how someone can be happy other than me. So, like, if you're asking yourself that question, I think you should ask more questions to yourself
Mm-hmm.
because it's deeply, like you are feeling some insecurity toward your um, abilities,
Mm-hmm.
or also there's something insecure about your relationship there. So, like, think of it as the opposite of jealousy, basically,
Right.
compersion. So,
But that makes sense because
yes,
you want to see, and people don't look at it as a relationship
yeah,
component. They look at it as a business or a career or an educational component, as in they want to lift a person when they get a job promotion or something to that, but about the happiness and joy as
yeah.
well. Because what if that's something that they can't provide?
That is a great example, actually, and I would give another example. So, like, it's kind of like how a parent might feel joy watching their child succeed, not because it benefits them directly, but because they love seeing someone they are thriving.
Yes.
You know. So, I think compersion reminds us that someone else's joy doesn't take away from our own; it can expand.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are in this type of mindset, things a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, and it makes sense. Now, how does one find that community, for instance?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of outward press from a lot of
Absolutely.
different parts of the LGBTQ plus
Mm-hmm.
community, in all different layers, in all different levels. So if somebody is listening
Mm-hmm.
and they feel these certain things and they want to
Yes.
talk to somebody, or where how do they find people that are like them?
Yeah, the first place to look at is definitely online.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many dating apps.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are stating they are ethically non-monogamous
Okay.
and they are polyamorous and they are partnered or not partnered. So we are lucky in these times that we have not just one but so many poly-oriented, poly-focused dating apps.
Mm-hmm.
So this would be the one place to look for
Mm-hmm.
individual or couples. But then, like, to talk about these feelings, to talk about, like the processes of polyamory. So we have tools that so many, individuals can find um, poly like poly-trained, or like, how can I say this, like poly-friendly therapists, basically.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these are also um, available to look through search tools.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking for a new therapist to yourself, you
Mm-hmm.
can definitely find the ones LGBTQ and poly-friendly ones, or identifies one
Mm-hmm.
of them. So as a community, we do have some events, of course,
Mm-hmm.
and social work is a really good field to bring these people together in
Right.
not just this community but many other communities.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really lucky to find most of my poly friends and community members through my social work practices.
Okay.
So I would say, like any nonprofit organizations that specifically helps LGBTQ clients or kids or identified people, they can also easily have leads through the
Mm-hmm.
polyamorous community.
Mm-hmm. And do you find that more, especially now that you've been in the country for 14 years,
Yes.
and just from the point that you first came here,
Mm-hmm.
the difference in timing from just in the last 14 years.
Yes.
Think about it. Okay, so I in my 20s dated
Mm-hmm.
women.
Mm-hmm.
I now am with a man.
Yeah.
I don't look at it, it's not,
Yeah. Yeah.
it comes down to me, it really comes just down to the
It's a
person.
spectrum.
It's
Yeah.
what, and with my mister, we've built an amazing foundation, and I always say in any relationship,
Yeah.
whether you're with multiple partners or not,
Yeah.
or one single partner, unless you can feel absolutely every single emotion with that person,
Yes.
then that's not the person that you're meant to be with. I mean, you have to have that built, that strong foundation,
Mm-hmm.
that can weather the storms and the floods and the things that happen, and it sounds so cliche and whatever you might say, but it's very, very true, because with my mister, I mean, even just in the last 17 years, nearly, we've gone through the gamut of loss,
Yeah.
and frustration and anger, and and where you're on the brink of just calling it quits, but then you take a breath and you think about it and you say, man, I really don't want to clean this house out. No. But little things like that, and you're
Absolutely.
like, oh, I mean, I've thrown him out probably half a dozen times this year alone, just because it's like, just leave, would you just move out, finally just go. And it's not because I'm, want to see him leave. It's just because you get so frustrated sometimes that you're just not making any headway. And so sometimes such a drastic decision can
Yeah.
make
Absolutely.
that, right? But if, in your own life, how, oh gosh, I'm kind of lost my train of thought there a little bit, but what do you look for towards the future?
What do I look like? I consider myself a solo polyamorous um, person, first of all. So that means at this moment of my life, I am not looking for, like a more nesting partner.
Mm-hmm.
But I am also keeping myself open. And in my mind, there's like a neutralized area. Like when you are telling your story with your mister,
Yes.
to me, it's just like, yeah, part of one of any possible
Right.
relationship. And it's just like, it's totally beyond binaries. It's totally beyond, like traditional relationship dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
So it could have been here, there. It's totally like a neutralized
Yes.
area when I'm listening to you. So in that type of mindset, it's really hard to think about in the future for me, to be
Right.
honest, because I am living a little uncertain
Yes.
as an immigrant, as an LGBTQ person, as someone choosing to not to specifically look for a nesting partner, basically.
Right.
So it's really hard for me to estimate that what's in the future. But for a near future, I have a couple exams that I need to pass.
That's helpful. Get those done.
And became a PhD candidate, then a PhD student, and then, go over the summer to Turkey and Basically keep surviving,
Right.
and
Now,
keep being by
do you
myself.
think the universe or some power or anything may have had a little hand in
Okay,
because you've kind of given it up. You've released yourself. Like when you applied for your masters, you said I just applied. I didn't
I
know how I
just
was going to pay
applied.
for it. I just
Yes.
applied.
Okay.
So just by giving it up like that, do you find that the universe has done that?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Let's come to that point because, yeah, astrology queer here.
Yes.
And I'm gonna definitely talk about it a little bit. I always believe in, I'm a spiritual person, and even though I'm not a religious person, I'm a spiritual person, and I believe in interpersonal energy awareness. I reflect on my relationships in terms of energetic dynamics, emotional timing, and intuitive knowing. So that kind of reflection often comes from uh, like a metaphysical framework, actually.
Yes.
So trusting what's felt even when it's not rationally explained. So it happens to me a lot. The symbols. My birthday is 7/7.
Uh-huh.
So, like, I always get something, like miraculously happen at the last minute to me. Like, my friends would be like, "Ah, you're so lucky." Like, I'm like, "Well, like, I don't know. Like, I think, is it my aura? Is it like, I don't know.
It
Like,
could be
I
anything.
consider myself lucky, and I'm just saying, yes, I accept it. I accept the fact
And
that
you
I am.
trust it.
I trust it too.
That's the key. You acknowledge that it's there and you trust that it's going to have a play. And
Absolutely.
you don't try to control it. There's so many people that try to say, okay, this has to happen. You do have to speak your truth. You always speak
Yes.
your truth to the universe, I think, because if you say, this is going to happen, I'm going to do this, or I'm already doing this, then those are the benefits.
I'm very much programmed like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, whenever I go somewhere, I know that I need, like a parking spot immediately. Like, my parking spot fairies are working for me. I always find one in the busiest street and on the busiest time, and I'm like,
Right.
I knew it. I already knew it. I just
Yes.
go and like, it's not always like that. I just had like an accident a couple days ago. It doesn't work like that, but I am not, like, this just happened to me. This is the end of the world. No, it happens, and I'm looking at it like, yeah, there's something that I
Mm-hmm.
need to learn from that. So, yeah, basically, I think every single situation teaches us a lesson, and I would say my lesson is usually like my freedom, my identity, and my emotional truth are not up for compromise.
Mm-hmm.
And the love that is worth having is the love that honors all of me, not just, like one part of
Yes.
me.
100%.
And I'm gonna definitely be, there's no, like, no one can second guess about, is it she intentional? I'm always intentional
Mm-hmm.
about my acts, my emotions, always.
And for as long as I've known you coming through my front door here,
Yes.
it's always been that way. It's always a joy to have you come in.
Thank
Um,
you, Leah. Same as well.
Thank you. And what would you say your anthem is? What would your personal anthem be to join the Anthem Project with us?
Mm, yeah,
What is the song that speaks to Saadet?
I will survive.
There you go.
Absolutely, I will survive.
Excellent. I like that
Yeah,
song. That is
that
a
is
great song
always,
because
yeah,
so you put that on the radio and
yeah.
oh, it just goes.
It
You know.
picks me up every single time.
I yes. And what's the other one by Aretha Franklin?
Uh,
That's Donna Summers, but Natural Woman. That one
I wouldn't
always,
know. Yeah.
yeah, that one always puts, I crank that music up. Oh, it was, Hollywood. I always go back to this really quickly before we end here.
Please.
Before we end, but Hollywood, they don't come up with any original ideas. They do all these remakes, but it's like, where were the writers from the 1980s, the late
Mm-hmm,
70s,
mm-hmm.
early 80s? Why can't they be brought back and come up with some new ideas? Because I'm so tired of remakes. But it's the same thing with the music. It's just like, oh god, the lyrics and just the songs, the ballads and everything else. I just love it. So
I still love remakes though.
yes, well,
They're really
to
good
some extent,
productions.
to some extent. So,
Absolutely.
but We want to thank Saadet again for joining us today on Life Between Coasts. We appreciate the fact that she was able to become vulnerable with us and share her journey. And that journey of love is an amazing journey that anyone can experience. So again, I just want everyone to be reminded to go to our website, lifebetweencoasts.com. You can click on our guest page, and that will allow you to see and interact with each of our guests that have joined us thus far. You can either go to their websites, or email us, or email them directly. We have those options available to you on that page. And then also go to the Anthem Project. Again, that is our personal anthem. So as we learned today, Saadet says, "I Will Survive" by Donna Summers. So we're going to be adding that to the playlist, but we want you to add your song too. So make sure you to go to our Anthem Project, click on the link to collaborate, and then add your song and post in the comments that your song title and why it speaks to you. And remember to like, subscribe, and share. Get the stories out. Let others hear what we have to say. We look forward to hearing from all of you and look forward to having you hear from us next week on the next episode of Life Between Coasts. Bye-bye.